Agent X11 Hollywood Dark Journalist begins now. And welcome to another episode of Agent X11 Hollywood Dark Journalist. We are joined today by my co-host Joan Renee, and this is Brian Singh's segment as well. Brian Singh Presents. So we're joined by Brian Singh and also Dr. Weeping Yu and Steven Sanchez, because this is Dr. Yu's universe with Steven Sanchez. Good afternoon or good morning, as the case may be, depending upon where you're calling in from. Dr. Weeping Yu, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you for having me on.
Steven, how are you?
Doing good. Had some sign-in issues, but I'm here.
And Brian Singh, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. I thought that for today's show, because the previous episodes we've been discussing kind of an alternate understanding of physics with Dr. Yu, especially, maybe we can today discuss the paranormal implications of that physics and how with this newer improved, we'd argue, understanding of physics, it more closely mirrors what we're seeing in the real world, that current contemporary, I don't know what you want to say, academia physics has been poo-pooing all along. And yet so many people in our community are on the forefront of doing things like remote viewing or astral projection or telepathy and animal communication, which is much more in line with our physics and not the old Darwinian Freemason type physics. Let's just put it that way.
That sounds awesome. I'm going to play Dr. Yu's universe, his intro, and then shut my window because the tree man is here. So here we go.
It's Dr. Yu. Woo, ooh, it's Dr. Yu. Woo, ooh, it's Dr. Yu. Dr. Yu's universe. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Zoom through the void where dreams collide. Galaxies spin on a cosmic ride. No up, no down, no left, no right. Dr. Yu's got stars in sight. We welcome you to Dr. Yu's universe, where planets sing and comets dance. Tune into you. He's broadcasting from a cosmic trance. Ooh, ooh, it's Dr. Yu. Ooh, ooh, it's Dr. Tu. Ooh, ooh, it's Dr. Yu. Dr. Yu's universe. Welcome to Dr. Yu's universe. We all strangers in a strange land. In the universe of stars and sand, where everything exists but not. Get ready to shout. What? Ooh, ooh, it's Dr. Yu. Ooh, ooh, it's Dr. Yu. Ooh, ooh, it's Dr. Yu. Dr. Yu's universe. Yeah, yeah. Nothing is what you thought you'd find. Get ready to adjust your mind. Forget all that you have read. Get maximum room, make space in your head. Welcome to Dr. Yu's universe, where time does not exist. Listen to Dr. Yu. He's phoning in from Earth number 2. Yeah, he's calling from the cosmos just for you. It's Dr. Yu. It's Dr. Yu. It's Dr. Yu. Dr. Yu's universe. Dr. Yu's universe.
And we are back. Brian, why don't you start us off? You're muted.
I think, okay. So going back to, the more classical conceptualization of physics that we all get taught, in grade school all the way through university here in the West in particular. Okay. The idea goes back to a classic debate between Einstein and Niels Bohr in particular, where Einstein was arguing the more classical understanding of physics, or conventional rather understanding of physics today, is you cannot have things that are far apart act upon each other. Okay. Whereas Niels Bohr had a much more quantum understanding. And it's not that Einstein necessarily poo-pooed. Well, yeah, it was really the quantum understanding that Niels Bohr had was that things distant from each other can interact upon one another. They've proven this with quarks and spin, where you take quarks that are paired with their same spin and you separate them no matter how far apart you take them. When you then change the spin direction of one quark, it'll change the direction of its matching pair quark, no matter how far you've separated the two. And what that indicates is that it's not just a physical realm that we can perceive to the eye per se, but there may be other layers where these things are interacting that, you know, are beyond the conventional understanding of physics. And then when we have been discussing with Dr. Yu for the last several episodes about his not conventional understanding of physics, everything that he's saying lends itself to be consistent with the more quantum Bohr's model of spooky action at a distance, which indeed has been proven correct. And that's why we can put on the thumbnail, Einstein was incorrect, because indeed, in this case, he was. And not only that, a lot of his incorrectness may have been stolen from his female assistants and partners in the first place.
Right. What do you guys know about Einstein? Stephen, can you tell us a little bit about Einstein?
Well, it's really interesting because there's so many different camps on how Einstein's perceived. I mean, sure, he's theory of relativity, and you got Oppenheimer, and the bomb, and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the people that say, well, he wasn't really the person that really came up with all that. So there's all this controversy of the real origin of all. Where did the actual E equals MC square, was it borrowed by somebody else? Because if you go down that rabbit hole, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff. But the interesting part of all that is well, at least from my perspective, is there's a big, strong argument even within the Einstein equations that, when you got into perspectives like, and I may correct me if I'm wrong on this, but even when you get into like Maxwell's equations that are quadratic and stuff, a lot of people have questioned Einstein's stuff, that when it came down to the real finite equations and stuff, they had to do small corrections. He thinks some things were not significant enough to take into consideration in his equations. And there's a lot of controversy on that. That part I know about Einstein. How interesting, because of working with these other guys, these mathematicians, with Marco's work, through the whole history of Marco doing his stuff for like 30, 40 years, his number one premise when he was trying to theorize stuff, it could not absolutely have no deviation, no error. You couldn't find a question, if you did it this way, you get right down to a real finite calculation. Wait a minute, there's a variable here. You know what I'm talking about? He absolutely refused. There cannot be variables within his equation. They have to be eloquent. They have to stand on their own merit. And apparently, within Einstein equations, there are some anomalies when you start, moving out these mathematics to the nth degree. That's what shocked me over working with Marco. Is wow, what a difference where someone made it a standard that, if it's going to be something to talk about, it has to be eloquent. It has to stand in its own face, no matter how far out you take your postulation. And how interesting there are some little anomalies within the Einstein application of his theories. That being said, that I find very interesting. That's just from my perspective, because I don't know a whole heck of a lot on Einstein, other than I do know that there are some anomalies when you take it out to an nth degree. So
What is that? UMMO. What is that, Brian?
So the Umo are apparently an ET civilization that have visited us, and they've shared a lot of knowledge via, I guess, various channels, and it's pretty detailed, and a lot of it is like an alternate understanding or a higher, more advanced understanding of physics and like relativity that I'll look it up during this conversation, and let's give Dr. Yu a chance as well to speak.
yeah. Because honestly, I'm not classically trained in this stuff. I'm more of an intuitive. I take a very spiritual perspective because I think if you really look at ancient Sanskrit and or Egyptian or Sumerian, and then you go into some really high esoteric spiritualism and the Buddhism and the Taoism and Sufi, you can actually see some of these mystics were really actually saying some really profound stuff that had strong implications in physics and mathematics and stuff like that. Except for back the day, you think of the terminology or the perspective what they're trying to explain. Something that arises is something that diminishes, and you have to understand nothing before you can understand something. Within those things, if someone sits with it, I think, and this is my perspective, a lot of my aha moments were going into deep introspection because I actually believe we have our physical universe, but when you think of the limitations of the physicality of things versus the emptiness, which is so vast, it's like thought. I mean, it might be the storehouse of all things. And I do believe when you go into silence, you can actually tap into that stuff. And by intention, I think you draw information from that. And I think in the old ancient mystical days of the past, that's how these people understood this stuff. And then they did fantastic things like building pyramids and doing Nazca lines and Stonehenge and lifting huge objects. I mean, how did they do that? I mean, they had a different way, a different terminology. Yet it's the same stuff.
So can I see if I understand what you guys are saying? That when you have the rigid theories way back from Einstein, they were finite. It was, this is the way it is, and that's the only way it is, and there's nothing else. And then what we find out is it's more, not just variables, but there's layers. Like we had the particle theory, but not everything is a particle. Then we have the wave theory, but not everything is a wave. So what we have is we have particles that vibrate, and that vibration can resonate with a like vibration somewhere else and get that to vibrate if it's built into the particle in another area. And that's how we're able to take one object from one place and affect an object somewhere else with nothing in between. Does that make sense? Am I hearing is that what you guys are saying?
Yeah, it's like there's a field. It's like imagine like you're in a pool of water and you make the wave ripple, and on the one hand that ripple wave can make a sailboat ripple bob up and down further down, but then you can also shine a laser through the water, and that's not going to have any effect.
But the water is a particle. The wave is just the wave is vibration.
Yes.
And what Dr. Yu showed is even in a vacuum, you can get that same resonance from one thing to another, simply if you have a match in the way that it vibrates. Am I doing it right? Dr. Yu, you've got to weigh in.
Yes, you said exactly right. You just show me how intelligent you are. No wonder Penny have to drag you everywhere, right? With her, if two people, we can have an issue. So basically, you answered actually the mystery regarding the quantum mechanics. Say, hey, is the universe made by particle or wave or duality? And however, You just mentioned that the explanation that was from a line to me, my understanding. So actually, universe made by particle. Particle is the source of a vibration. Okay, so when we communicate each other, you have a particle, right? Object here. How can you communicate with another object, say, light years away? So that's what Brian mentioned about this quantum entanglement, right? So now we said, hey, how can they communicate? Communicate through what? Through wave. That's where the wave came in. And what is made of wave is oceans of smaller magnetic particle form a fluid called a magnetic fluid. So when you have a particle as a source vibrate, what happens? You oscillate, you create oscillation in the medium. So that's a wave propagation, and that's the connection between one particle, one object with another one away through what? Through this intermediate medium. Perfect. Oh my goodness. You're still that sharp. I could not do that when I was in college. I was confused.
Well, I think that we understand what Steve and Brian were saying then,
Yep.
because it sounds like we're all in agreement there. So where does it go from here, Dr. Yu?
Oh, yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Actually, well, this is more now getting into the paranormal. In this, so Dolores Cannon, she pioneered something known as quantum hypnosis healing technique, QHHT. And I might even be getting that acronym wrong. It's QHHT.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, maybe healing hypnosis technique or therapy or whatever. But what it does is, during many decades of her working with thousands of people doing this quantum type regression hypnosis, this technique, she was speaking with people's higher selves and other dimensional or other forms of these people, like their higher self or a mantis being version of themselves. And she's speaking to them through, perhaps we might call it a quantum field. And she found that when speaking to people, time was very relative. It didn't matter. Like, she had a patient or a client who wanted to speak with like her father's higher self, and her father's higher self appeared as like a mantis being. And meanwhile, the father was like, at work in his regular human body, and she's speaking with the father's mantis being version. And what that goes to show is that our conceptualization of time it's too linear and rigid, when we can appear at any different time or space, theoretically and realistically, if we truly understand the concept that time as we know it doesn't even exist, and all time is interconnected. And another thing that Dolores Cannon, through all these sessions, realized, it wasn't just how time doesn't really exist as the construct in which we conceive it, and those boundaries can be broken, but also there are levels of consciousness. And I might be getting it incorrect, but the idea is like many even ETs and spiritual beings, they refer to as the law of one. It's known as a universal law. The law of one being we all come from God's source. We're shattered, chipped off our own little God source spark creation. And eventually each one of us will make our way back to God's source. So we'll all be reunited. But in the meantime, even though we are all our individual spark, we are still all interconnected in one. Okay, so that's a summary of the law of one. And when in the law of one, it talks about we're all part of one, the God source, and then we get broken off. Some people might call that the fracturing or the shattering. We become a chip off the old block. Okay, the lowest, that's the highest level of consciousness and creation and being at which we can exist, is when we are at one with God's source. So then what is like the lowest in terms of physical creation? as the way we conceive it in this universe, would be, say, first density consciousness would all the way back down to mud and rock and dirt. Okay, but higher first density consciousness would be crystals. Okay, where crystal energy is a highest form of first density consciousness. And then from first density consciousness, it can go up to second density, which is plant. Okay, that consciousness. Whereas you got like maybe the lower plants is lower second density to then the higher plants and trees, and the more complex forms of plant life. And then the next level of density, third density, is animal consciousness. That's where we humans are at right now. And when we talk about the ascension, it's going from third density consciousness, lower, like monkey ape man, where we just beat each other over the head and take from each other or whatever, to a higher consciousness, third density humanity, where now we're all telepathic, we're empathic and sympathetic to one another, and more of not a hive mind where we're enslaved, but like more of a collective understanding, a societal group mind, because we're vibing with each other. That's like a higher level, highest third density consciousness. And then the fourth, some people argue, is like the astral levels of consciousness density, from the lower astral, like the hell realms, to the higher, more heavenly astral type planes within the astral. And then fifth density consciousness. And with each density of consciousness we're getting closer to unification with God's source. And the levels of the layers that we get access to, the amount of waves, wave pools that we can interact with, somehow we become more powerful as we go up. And so, this conceptualization of physics here, with quantum physics and these different fields and densities of consciousness and existence interacting with one another, now that can begin to give us explanations for angels and demons coming from perhaps these astral realms, or ETs or phasing, or Sasquatch, Bigfoot, phasing in and out of what we see as physical existence. But then people who are vibrating at a higher density of consciousness, instead of just lower third, they're in higher third or even up in fourth density. Now, how come those people, they're able to see these beings? Well, what some ETs have used, apparently, the example of a ceiling fan. When a fan spins really slowly, you can see the fan blade, each individual blade. But as a fan blade spins faster and faster, it'll blur to the point where the blades will disappear or might look like just one blade. But if you're able to speed up your visual perception to catch up at a high enough refresh rate, then you could even slow down the fan and make it look like it's standing still, even though the blades are in fact moving really fast. And so there's where we're getting this relativistic understanding, but while it's all quantum entangled.
You mentioned something about time travel, and that kind of sparked something with what we're talking about, the vibration. And and it just struck me that may be how our memory works, because we have memories that we can retain, and they get recalled when we come across a like situation, and then all of a sudden it will spark a memory, so that we can remember everything that happened then. And we're also faced with something very similar right now, or at least something about it. Maybe the smell of a cigar, and there's a memory that's been logged as the smell of a cigar, and the rest of the memory comes through. Once you smell that, then you can bring back the rest of it. And when you talk about time travel, I think that time travel might just work the same way, because we have that like vibration, and then we go to places where it fits that. And it's possible that some people have the ability to do that with things that didn't necessarily happen to them, but just things that happened or will happen. And then that might be where we get this time travel, remote viewing, looking in the future, looking in the past, because that all fits together with the, you know, the particle and the wave, and then the resonance causing in one spot, causing resonance in another.
Well, and
That
look,
all
so
fits.
it's exactly like what you're saying, Joan. It starts. Let's use the example that you're using. So let's say someone's walking down the street and they smell something, roses,
Mhm.
and then it reminds them of a time when they were going to prom and their date brought her some roses. Okay, so first there's that physical sensation, and then
Mhm.
it's triggering a memory, and then that memory is now that physical sensation is bringing up the memory of the roses. Now, the question is when you bring up the memory of the roses, are you now interlocking with the actual memory that happened in this timeline, or maybe a slightly adjacent timeline, but it's close enough, and then now you're quantum interlocking with that. So when what you're perceiving is your memory, what are you truly locking onto, right? And then people who have certain gifts and abilities, they're able to surf the different, they surf the time when their boyfriend for that prom date brought them red roses, or they can also smell or sense the timeline where they were brought yellow roses as a sign of friendship because they're being put in the friend zone or whatever. And it could be any of those. Those are some possibilities that would line up with what you're speaking to, perhaps.
Is this Dr. Yu?
Yes.
Is this ringing any bells with you?
Oh yes. Okay. So let me see if I can catch. You know, you guys have touched many subjects. Let me see if I can catch the first argument. The first scenario raised by Brian mentioned about communicate with someone already passed. Is that right? You mentioned about so let me give you my physical and explanation about how can you communicate with somebody already passed. That's my belief. You know, the consciousness is really is a vibration, the thoughts, is the signals in this called universal magnetic medium. I call the yuan medium. It's already stored there. The signal, human being physically no longer exists. However, his thoughts and his some kind of things still, the signal still exists in this magnetic field as either as a vibration signals, even very weak, or for you said over human retrieve this memory is I know that for sure is a magnetic memory. When you have a magnetic imprint, something suddenly imprinted in your brain, you have a permanent structure imprint is a magnetic particles, right? Imprint. So whenever trigger you suddenly kick your magnetic, retrieve your magnetic summary, so that's get to you. So in this case, I believe the father of the lady say, hey, his thoughts is still there. However, you have to, in order to receive them, you have some in the special situation and make your frequency resonant, which means you have to tuning your frequency at the right mood, right emotion, and then you have that similar resonant frequency, and then you can receive it. So I do believe you can communicate with people past. However, I believe their contribution, their thoughts, something still stored in the universe.
So you can connect with the magnetic field because it records everything. Is basically what you're saying. So
that's
then you can
way.
remote view the past.
Yes.
But there is also where you have a predictive going forward, so you should be able to go forward too, because you can, from the resonance that's occurring, you should be able to predict the future resonance, correct?
Yes.
So you could go forwards and backwards.
Yes. So all these thoughts, all these events, they may, just like you said, the universe is just like a big giant memory. My brain, memory stored in what form? In magnetic form, because universe is filled with a magnetic field. I call the yuan the smallest particle, filled with them, so they can record everything. You may who's a musician here? I believe someone's a musician. Oh my goodness. You may. I heard a story. I'm not sure if you guys if that's true. Many musicians they create a fantastic music piece. What they say, oh, I'm in the wake up in the night or in the dream, like 2 or 3 o'clock uh, in the sleep, and suddenly I was receiving some signals through you. Suddenly generated those music pieces beyond the musician himself to believe. Does that true, Patty? You will feel those
Yes, I'm a
creations.
songwriter. I'm a songwriter and a singer. Steven is a drummer, and Steven's like freaking everything. I don't even know half the things that you do, Steven. You're just like so totally amazing. But yes, so
Receiving,
I
not
actually had my
creating.
stuff taken from me, and not sure what it was. But I did want to mention a little bit about being able to connect with as you're saying, the universal source. Um, I also have had waking visions that came true. And I had, I'll just throw it out there. I had some visions when I was in Branson. God directed me to Branson a couple times, and I saw Trump get shot. That was in 2017, but he was fine. And then I also saw him reelected into the White House, and I was mocked and made fun of. But there's a fact. The reason why this show is called Agent X11 is because I found out I was involved in some psychic projects as a child under MK Ultra, and I'm actually the real 11 depicted in the filmography Stranger Things, which is on Netflix. And my last name with my first husband, who was a musician, we had a band called Stranger because that was his last name. His last name was Zenos, and that means stranger. So Stranger Things is like for sure me. I don't even want to go into it. But if anybody wants to find out, you can, research the internet and find some of my interviews. However, I have been able since a child, and I follow Jesus Christ. So that's my, where I came from, and God, and my feet were guided by that. I died a couple of times. So did I actually tap into even more to a collective? Because when you die, where's your energy? Your energy is still here. I say die. Many people say near death experience. I just say die. That's just my equation with that. So I believe we're all tapped into that ability to, if you will, if you say time travel, or another experience that just happened to me involved one of our guests. His name is Jerome Corsi, and he phoned in from he was at the Harvard Club, and he phoned in on his phone in a telephone booth at the Harvard Club. So I was like, I've seen this before. This happened before. And I felt time overlapping. And then I actually saw it so much that I asked my partner, David Zublik, has Corsi ever been on our show before in a phone booth? He's like, no, not to my knowledge. And then I texted Jerome Corsi himself and said, have you ever been on our show before in a phone booth? I'm sure he thought, well, that's just a weirdo question. But he said, no, not to my knowledge. But I vividly saw this happen. So I think that there are some timelines, and perhaps there are maybe time travelers that are messing with the timelines, and that there are many timelines and they're all running concurrently. That's my premise, that there are all these timelines are running concurrently. And there is a technology they called looking glass technology. Dan Burish was actively involved in that. He kind of disappeared. And Dan had said when they were doing a recording with his girlfriend, she said, oh my God, I'm feeling deja vu. And they looked mortified. And they essentially said that it was time overlapping upon itself. Stephen?
Yeah, I got a lot to say on this one. One thing for sure, we are this spiritual sentientness having a human experience, but it's very interesting from an esoteric point of view. If you look at the human being, we got 2 eyes, we got 2 ears, we got a right and left hemisphere. In all intents and purposes, we're an interferometer. And I think Dr. Yu could say stuff on this. Think about it. You set out a wave and function. Now, the thing is, we use, waves, you know what I mean? This is portrayed in a one-dimensional plane. This is how we look at an oscilloscope, and I'm using a piece of wire to explain, oh, there's a wave. But, some waves, they go like this. Sometimes it's controlled by the amplitude. You got a lot of energy, or maybe a very simple energy, real fast, real short. But that's amplitude and frequency modulation. There's another pressure wave called the scalar, where you have a moment of energy and then a collapse in a moment of energy. Now, how interesting, we have a right and left hemisphere. It's a scalar interferometer. That's how we can detect the location, even our eyes and our ears. That's how we co-locate by interferometry. So that being said, when you look at matter and mass and stuff around here, and because, in Dr. Yu's explanation of magnetic energy, magnetics can, they travel through vacuum and all kinds of good stuff. So if you can triangulate location by two frequencies intersecting, and you get a standing wave. That's how you calibrate and make optics and stuff. You project an image on a white screen, and then they'll make these rings and these patterns, and that by distance, measuring the distance and the size of the pattern, they can understand their correctness of their lenses. Why I'm talking about this creates location and position. And when you start getting into actual physicality, it's not this flat plane, it's geometric, and it goes in all directions, or what we call vectors. Okay, now think about this for a second. I'm thinking about the rose for the example. Okay, I'm thinking about the rose. Now my scalar interferometer is thinking. It's now set out a standing wave into the totality of all there is. There is probably a like resonance thing in the universe that resonates yellow rose. Now, standing frequencies are instantaneous, irrespective of distance. That's where the quark theory and all that happens from. So now I can sit and get into a state of intention and phase lock with these things that are out there. Depending on my clarity and my intention, it could be infinite what I could tap into if I mastered this technique, if you will, right? So think about it. What about time travel? Well, if it's a vector, and a vector, I'm at this point, and that means I can look at a different location by intention, because an interferometer is a 2-point situation looking for a third point. You're actually navigating consciousness. You get where I'm coming from now? So when you think about that, okay, this is where time comes in. There's a point here and a point here, and now I measured something from this instance to this instances. So let's say that it's linear, and I have to use a linear example. This is forward into time. What if the vector went the other way? There's backwards in time. You see how that's going? So time travel is not necessarily looking into the past. It's lining up to that other point in existence in the etheric infinite field of phase coherently lining up with another incident that has happened, which gives me the last point that nothing's ever learned or nothing's the past. Everything that's ever existed, everything that's ever experienced exists simultaneously right now. There's, as they say, there's nothing new under the sun, because the infinitude of the totality of all of this contains it all. So there's nothing new under the sun. We just have to get coherent enough to line up, and there it is.
Dr. Yu?
Oh, yes. Oh, wonderful. So I try to summarize all the ideas, see if the audience can understand, So basically, we are saying the whole universe, beyond the human body, the object, right? The whole universe is a giant brain memory. That's where Joanne said. So all the information, ideas, everything past, stored in this giant brain memories. That's number one. And Stephen just mentioned about how they stored it as a standing waveform. Oh my goodness, right? So that's how they stored it. However, so now how we receive that one. So now we're back to Brian mentioned about it. So you are in the situation, you are in the mood, you are tuning your mood, your state of the being in the exactly aligned with the standing wave frequency. The standing wave, we could say there's called what do you call that, frequency modulated wave, right? And also they have called amplitude modulated. So there's a different form or combined frequency and amplitude modulated form. So that's why all kind of information can be stored in this giant brain memory. Oh, fantastic. So that's how we can commute. Now today, let me tell you, I do not believe time travel. But today, I have a new meaning of time travel now. Thanks, Brian mentioned about it. Because say, hey, how can you communicate with your ancestor? Spiritually.
Yep.
The thoughts, the experience, the idea, the feelings stored in this giant universal brain. So we can spiritually communicate with our ancestors. You can gain wisdom from their thoughts, their idea. So I still do not believe physically time traveling, but I do believe idea can time travel. Thank you, guys.
But and I'd love to speak to some examples of time travel that I know of from at least from the witnesses giving testimony in the full disclosure community and movement. Arkeem Ra and John Whitberg among them. And what Arkeem Ra recalls is they would go on these time travel missions. And basically the conceptualization is like you've got the Earth that we're in here, but then there's an Earth timeline that they want to shift over here. But to get it to shift, if it was too much of a difference between the timelines, they would have to go on not just one mission to bridge the gap, but they'd have to go on multiple timeline missions to get Earth to the timeline closer to whatever they wanted. And usually that was a darker timeline where humanity is more disempowered. Okay, we're more enslaved to these Khazarian mafia cabal, ET overlord types. And he recalls that he would go through a portal at Montauk, the Camp Hero Air Force Base, underground, where they would open up portals with the Montauk Trip Chair. And he would come back from a mission, and Preston Nichols would literally say, "Here, kid, here's some money. Go into town," the sleepy fishing village of Montauk at that time. Now it's like a kind of booming, bustling beach tourism town, which is great. Not that there's a lot of beaches, but it's like out there on Long Island, the East End, and it's beautiful there. And when he went to the store, the corner store, the liquor store, to buy a newspaper, when he put the money on the counter, if the person gave him a funny look, then that meant that they changed things too much, and he would have to go back and they'd have to do the mission over. Okay, so there's a concept of there's these parallel Earths, and some people say that there's like a main or primary timelines, and then there's timelines that bridge off of that main timeline. And right now, with the Mandela effect, because of the time travel experiments or shenanigans that they did, because time travel and alteration, I believe, it's very bad and dangerous. It's not good. There's these quantum effects and this manipulation that has occurred, and because of that, that's where you've got the Mandela effect, the collision. And I recall waking up around 2011 saying, wow, there's this commercial on TV for a movie about how Nelson Mandela got out of Robben Island prison after 26 years of imprisonment for fighting against the apartheid slavery in South Africa at that time. And he became president of South Africa and inspired their national rugby team to win an international rugby tournament. And then my recall, and many people, our recall is that no, Nelson Mandela died in Robben Island prison. I think it was like in the 80s. And we were all really, I remember learning about it and being really sad about it. and seeing images of huge funeral processions through South Africa, South African flag draped over the coffin, everything. And then all of a sudden it got replaced with this alternate reality. Likewise, I'm seeing things multiple times now where people they've got a camera and they'll look at like a sign or a TV show playing on the TV screen, and the show looks one way, and then they'll hold up their phone to it and look at it through the phone camera, and then have a camera looking at what the phone is seeing, and what the phone is seeing is slightly different than what's on the screen.
That's creepy.
It's creepy. It's like, to me, that might be a demonstration of quantum effects in merged timelines, but I'm not sure.
I
But
need
I've
one of
seen
those.
it multiple times.
I don't have one of those, so I'll have to get one of those things. Yeah.
That just proves phase coherency and the whole idea that what we're living, just like we're right now, each of us are in our own little, you might say, frame.
Yes.
And it's vibrating at a specific instance, if you will. That doesn't mean, and think about it, again, we're stuck with this limited thing of sight, hearing, and our perception. It's only a limited bandwidth. Stuff can phase coherently move into that frame, out of that frame. It's like tuning a radio, you know what I mean? And maybe something, you know, we could be right here, and all of a sudden my picture could phase out, and then here's an extraterrestrial waving at you, know, all of a sudden I phase back in, because this is a transmission of instances happening through the internet.
Yes.
You know, how do you know I'm sitting here right now? It's just an image.
Is it you, Stephen? Is it live or is it Memorex?
We're like individual time frames.
Could you demonstrate?
Well, I always use the example, you're listening to the radio and this comedian says, we're going to make a piano disappear. And you hear all the people in the background go, yay! How do you know the piano disappeared if it's on a radio?
Right. How do you even know there was a piano there?
Yeah. So it's like that, you know. I mean, we are in coherence right here and with our audience, but really, are we really here? You know what I mean? This is a transmission.
This has been a fascinating conversation. And I really think that this group is meant to be together and to discuss some of these issues that, you know, the scientific mind, sometimes the scientific mind, other than you two, is a finite and concrete. It has to be this way. That's the way they told us it was, and they're not investigative. So I'm very, very appreciative of you both. I'm very appreciative of Brian Singh. He has the Full Disclosure Now project. We're running out of time, so I'm going to take this time to have everyone close. Brian Singh, where can people find you?
In addition to my Thursday appearances here, I'm on, you can find my website, fulldisclosure.live. That's for the conference series. We're still in the planning stages, early planning stages for 2026, once again in Florida, St. Pete Beach. And then also fulldisclosure.network. That's for my blog, which, you know, keep an eye, just sign up there for now and keep an eye out for updates as we go for our platform launch, as things get unfrozen financially as they are happening. And then also, you can find me on Facebook, message me directly, especially if you'd like to get involved, you know, work-wise in the full disclosure movement. You want to participate somehow. You have a testimony to share. You know, you want to assist people in the community because you have resources and you want to help get the word out, things like that, please. You can find me on Facebook, Brian Sang, and add my nickname there, Solar Bee.
Excellent. And Stephen Sanchez, where can people find you if they wanted to write to you? Could they?
Yeah, absolutely. They could write to me at my email, which is the number one in the one word, goldentiger@gmail.com. And again, I got to get on my good foot and finish up my website, which is called Backward Engineering. And a lot of interesting things happening in my world right now with the roding coils and stuff like that. A person from Tesla Tech contacted me and they want to do some more extensive research on coil research. With that, I want to plug this book. I don't know if it's backwards online here, but this is, you can find this online. It's Marco Rodin's work. Just type in Marco Rodin in books on Amazon. Highly recommend the book. It's not cheap, but it's full of this amazing mathematics on toroidal stuff. It's just incredible. It's a good way to expand your mind in a different number set. That here's a possibility of looking at reality from a complete different frame, and you can actually get lost in it because the implications of his mathematics is pretty profound. So that's what I can say.
Excellent. And Dr. Wei Ping Yu, how can people get in touch with you? How can they find you?
Yes, if you want looking for my past work from the videos or some slides, you can use my X platform name. That's at Real Dr. Yu. So at Real DRYU. So you can find me. If you have questions you want to reach me, the best place is you text. You send your questions to Penny. She will get to everything to me right away, and I will guarantee I will reply for you.
You can contact me at 619-779-9771. Please state your first and last name and what questions you have for Dr. Yu, and I will send it to him forthwith. Joan Renee, where can people find you?
Well, most co-hosts can be found in Pennyland. I can be found in Penny World. And so that is David Zublick's Awake Nation on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Trauma Triage on Wednesdays, Agent X11 whenever, and on X you can find me at Joan Renee 27.
And you can find me on the Awake Nation News from 7 to 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. That's Eastern time. And then with the Awake Nation, with the fabulous David Zublick, we have 4 guests every day on the Awake Nation that we interview. 4 segments of 30 minutes with David Zublick, and that is from 8 to 10. So our total Awake Nation is from 7 to 10, and that is Eastern time. And you can also find me on Agent X11, and we have a lot of different shows on Agent X11 that you can check out. So go to the Agent X11 channel. You can find us also at my X, which is Shepherd Out. Apparently I was in, now I'm out, which is a fortunate thing. And you can find me on Facebook. And then also you can email me at shepherdentertainment@gmail.com or penny@darkoutpost.com. And then you can also, again, text my phone with any questions. My phone's on silent, so you can text me 24/7. Please don't stalk me. I will have to block you. But my phone number again is 619-779-9771. Thank you so very, very much for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Agent X11 channel and also the David Zublick channel on Rumble. We will see you again tomorrow on Awake Nation and also on Agent X11. Thank you for joining us. We're out of time, so we are out of here. Shepherd out.
Oh, and real quick to answer a question from Jimmy, I don't think they cloned Nelson Mandela. I think they did a time travel mission to keep him from dying in this timeline, which has altered this timeline drastically. Solar B out.
Joan.
Renee out.
Stephen.
Okay, yeah. Live your guys' lives as though it matters. Stephen out.
And Dr. Yu.
Dr. Yu out.
Yes. Goodbye for today from Agent X11, Hollywood Dark Journalist. We post new episodes daily. Check out our true crime episodes Wednesdays and Fridays. don't forget to watch our main show, David Zubik's Awake Nation, on the David Zubik channel on Rumble, live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern.